Okay, today we're working on this Toro lawnmower that the customer says they smelled gas. The gas was actually leaking out of the bottom of the carburetor when I got it. I thought there was still gas in the tank, but I just checked it today and it's empty, so it all leaked out. It is time for an air filter for sure. So let's get this carburetor off of here. This is I use a 5/16, but 8mm is the same thing. So we got these two black screws. Get these guys out of the way. My guess is that for some reason the needle valve didn't seat and started dripping gas. They said it was dripping. They put a rag under it. And there was gas in the tank when I got it a couple months ago. It seemed like it stopped while there was still gas in the tank, which would make it a little bit of a challenge to figure out the problem. But now the gas tank's empty, so it must have kept dripping and I didn't realize it. The smell of gas went away. So we're going to take the carburetor off and see if we can figure out why the gas is running through here. Luckily the oil's not over full, so I don't suspect that it was really going into the cylinder. I think it was more just leaking out of the carburetor. So this is the back part of the air filter housing. Now we're going to take off this clamp for the hose off the gas tank here. And we can pop this hose off the bottom of the tank. Like I said, the gas tank's already empty, so that's why I'm taking it off here instead of putting a clamp on it and taking it off the carburetor. Although it doesn't want to come off of here. Well, I guess I got to move the carburetor a little bit. So I got the mounting screws for the carburetor already off. Have to open this a little bit. Then you give it a little tug, and it pops off of there. Now we should be able to get this hose off. There's a little bit of gas. So now we got a little bit of linkage here. We're going to tilt the carburetor up this way to get the choke lever off without breaking anything. Or first let's tilt it this way to get the throttle lever off. Of course, if I wasn't recording, I'd have it off already. When people are watching, that's when stuff doesn't go right. Well, the choke lever popped off without breaking anything. Well, I wasn't planning on it, but we're all good. That's how that should work. Right there. Now we're gonna wipe off my fingers. I think I may have to get another socket to get the bowl off of there. So there was definitely gas in the carburetor. So this is a good reason that you don't want to do it in the house, because you are going to be smelling gas. The wife may not like that. Alright, so for this I have the 7mm, which I use for two of the screws on the cover there. We're going to take these two out. And this carburetor will come apart and we can see what it looks like in there. These carburetors here are really, really simple. Just about everything inside is plastic except for the little brass jet that the gas goes through. I guess they haven't figured out how to make plastic jets that are that they can hold the tolerances to. so they still use a piece of brass. Now we're just going to work this a little bit. May need a screwdriver to pop this bowl off of here. See if this little one works. There we go. A little bit right there. Now this, like I said, this is all plastic, so you don't want to overdo it when you're prying on any of this. So, right there, a little piece of brass is your main jet. So, luckily plastic doesn't corrode. So that helps it deal with the ethanol in the gas. I see a little bit of dirt in here. A little bit of contamination. A little bit of brown bubbles in there. But where the problem would likely be is in the needle valve right here. Now, something you want to watch for when you pull this carburetor off like I did is this part here that goes on the intake. There's an O-ring that fits in there. That's why there's no bolts or no gasket where this goes onto the engine. You got this little O-ring that fits in here. Right all the way down in there. And then on the little intake tube, you have this retainer that needs to pop inside there. We're going to clean this a little bit. We don't want to put this in there dirty. You could do this later, but I'm choosing to do it now. I'm pretty sure that fits in this groove right here. And it's not really flexible. There we go. Now the O-ring's not going to fall out on us. So now, over here is where we get to the needle valve. So we're going to slide this pin out of here. Using those pliers make it easier. Now we pull this out. Here's the needle valve. This all looks nice and clean. Of course, the dirt wouldn't be stuck to that. It would be laying down in there. And all that down in there looks good. But I am going to try and get that seat out of there. If that little seat goes bad down in that hole, in that tube, it's not going to seal right. It feels pretty hard. That actually looks like brass. Okay, yeah. I was was a little incorrect there. It's been a while since I took one of these apart. It doesn't happen too often anymore. But I need to really worry about this. So this has a rubber tip on the end of it, which means it's not going to have a little piece of rubber sealing material down in there. And I don't see anything wrong with this. So for now, we're going to actually reassemble this. And I'm going to have to, I'm going to put some gas in this and check it out. See if it is actually overflowing yet, or if that was possibly a freak accident. Kind of like right there where I dropped the seat, the needle valve. There it is. Well, let's clean this off again. And try this again. So I'm going to hold it so it's facing down like that. That way it won't slide out. And we put that down in there. And we let that sit like that. Line that up. And we slide this pin back in here. Ever so carefully. Of course it's not going to go right in. That would be too easy. It does look like the other side's open further. I'm going to try and slide it in the other side once. I'm thinking that this side that I tried first might be the one to hold it tight. Well, either way, it worked better that way. Well, let's see here. Alright, now that's back in there. And I can tell that it's actually the needle and seat that are stopping the float. If this would become warped or bent, that this was stopping on the body, then that would cause the needle valve not to seal. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I forgot to check to see if there's anything in the float. The float felt pretty light to me, like it wasn't leaking. And I don't see anything in there. On this one, I'm pretty sure I'd be able to see some kind of liquid in there. So I'm going to reassemble this and put some gas in it and let it sit and see what happens. There's a little contamination down in there. That might cause it to stumble a little bit while you're cutting grass, but nothing major on this one. So now, since I didn't pay attention to which way this was, this part here is offset to one side, and down in the bottom of the bowl, you have this here. So I'm going to put the bowl on so that this part here, the part that's the lowest of the bowl, is over top of that. That way, it should clear. I'm pretty sure if you put it the other way, it's not going to go down all the way. And this is where you want to make sure it goes on all the way, that you don't use the screws to pull it together, because you could break off the tabs. it's definitely on the right way, otherwise it wouldn't go together this far. And now it's down pretty much all the way on both sides. It's even all the way around. So now we can put these two screws back in. So we're going to reassemble this, put it back on, and let it sit for a while and see what it looks like with some gas in it. Then I'll try and start it. And I need to look at the rest of the mower. It's self-propelled, so I'm going to need to look at the belt. The owner wants all that stuff checked out. They want it ready to go when they get it back. So now to hook this linkage back up. I think I'm going to do the throttle one first, which goes into that hole there. And of course, when you're reassembling this, you don't want to put too much pressure on this plastic. It will not like that. So I'm going to use pliers and hold this lever over farther because it's spring loaded in, but if you you can actually pull it out. There we go. It popped in just like that. It looks so easy when somebody else does it, right? Now, get this back together. So we're going to put the hose back on here while we have it loose. And now, we got to put it on the tube for the intake, which I know you can't see it. I can't see it either. It's dark in there. Because I don't have the lighting I should have to be doing this. I gotta turn it a little bit. It's the hose for the gas line that's making it difficult. So once you get this back on this side here, the carburetor fits into this slot. Now we put the air cleaner housing back on. We want to make sure that we get this breather hose reattached. So we're going to use some needle nose pliers to reach back in there and pop that on. There's no clip or anything to hold that on. It just fits up on that little tube that sticks out. Now the two black ones go on the outside, the two shiny ones go on the inside. The two shiny ones hold this to the carburetor. And that's actually the only mounting for the carburetor. On the back of the carburetor, on a usual, what used to be a normal engine, carburetor was bolted fast to the engine. Now the carburetor is bolted fast to this air cleaner housing with these two screws, and then the two screws that go out here hold the air cleaner housing to the engine. Tighten these two up. Then we'll change the socket back to the 5/16, which if you were using metric tools, it would be the 8mm. They're basically the same size. Well, of course, that's not perfectly lined up. There we go. Only off by a hair, but just enough that it don't want to start. That just happens to be where the metal's resting at, with no tension on it. gonna leave the air filter off, and I'm gonna actually tilt this just a little bit so that if the gas does leak, it'll run out over here, and I'll be able to see it easier. Alright, so we got the carburetor. So we put that hose clamp on. So right now there's nothing leaking here. So I'm gonna have to let this sit a while, and we'll come back later and see if I find anything, and then I'll move on to checking the belt and the blade. Probably sharpen the blade for sure.